is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
What has happened is a colossal military disaster.
The call went out. We have to go to Dunkirk.
I'm not going back. If we go, they will die. You're weekend sailors, not the bloody Navy. You should be at home.
There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
Turn it around!
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
Where's the bloody Air Force?
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, super premium review of Dunkirk. Where's the bloody Air Force? And The Big Sick. Now, I'll just start off with The Big Sick real quick because Jay didn't get to see it.
No, unfortunately not. I will be soon, hopefully, and well, I will be. But maybe I'll do a quick little review when I see it. But
For once,
Dave, yeah, please take it away.
For once, I'm more cinema rich than you.
I know. I mean, usually I'm the one doing solo reviews a lot.
So The Big Sick, this is going to be really short, was an absolute testament to fantastic script writing. It was an absolute testament to character development, to just it really shines a light on what it's like to be a modern immigrant to this country. Where I don't mean like, you can go back and you can watch The Godfather. You can watch
in like a realistic, grounded way, right?
In a very realistic way
Okay.
about like how this generation of new immigrants really feels in this country. And I loved it because like Kumail Nanjiani plays this character where he's kind of torn between two worlds. He's torn between the world of stand-up comedy and the world of pop culture and the world of between being an American in their 30s. Like he's torn between that and being a man who was raised in a very old school Pakistani family. They hold on to everything they were from Pakistan. He gives this great speech in it. Gives this great speech to his parents in it. And I don't want to spoil anything from it. I really don't. I don't want to spoil anything. It's just a film that really gets into that duality of who you are and where you come from and having to marry both of those things. And then on the flip side of that, how things like that can affect a relationship and the deepness of a relationship, how it can grow and not only that, like the faults, just the realistic faults of what it is to bring two lives together, two completely different lives together. And
well, how was the chemistry and how was like the love? Did you find it
So-
realistic and everything? Because that's probably what it's hinging on, correct?
I can't really spoil it
Okay.
too much. It is called The Big Sick because she does get sick.
That's not a spoiler,
Right.
Yeah.
So she is in a coma most of the film. So it's a love story that's told from one perspective, and that has some interesting results. It's very interesting. It's one of the
But
things.
beforehand, you get enough.
Right. You do. You get kind of like a natural, I would say, modern day telling of how a relationship starts.
Cool.
And like it's one of the things I said to Lauren while we were watching this movie. I said to her, it's kind of weird that we're getting a love story from one perspective. It's not, you don't always get that in love stories. You don't get a one perspective love story because you need to know that they both feel about each other in the same way.
Well, probably the only thing that even remotely comes close to that is 500 Days of Summer, where it is sort of like you see both sides of the coin in a way, sort of.
Right.
Not really. It's usually one side, but two versions of one sided, perspectives, know, like seeing it in his eyes and then reflecting back upon it. And that was really brilliantly done by Mark Webb.
So I really enjoyed The Big Sick. I enjoyed Kumail Nanjiani. I enjoyed Ray Romano. I enjoyed Ray Romano in something.
No, I Ray Romano is going to be in The Irishman, the latest Martin Scorsese film. That they did get Joe Pesci, by the way. I know that was all over the news for the last year or so. Them trying to cast him and get him to come back out of retirement, and he finally agreed. So yeah, Ray Romano. He was in that one short-lived one-season show on HBO, Vinyl, and he was solid as a dramatic actor. But I'm looking forward to seeing him in this movie this week. And
it's also got Holly Hunter, my favorite middle-aged woman who talks out of the side of her mouth, and she's also Mrs. Incredible. So how could I not talk about Holly Hunter? It also has Bo Burnham in it, and you might know him from his Netflix comedy specials where he plays the piano. And he's much in the vein of Stephen Lynch. However, I would say he's actually better than Stephen Lynch. And it also has Adie Bryant, who you would definitely recognize from SNL. So for the cast of characters, for the script, and for like this type of modern telling of like immigration and how that affects someone who's very close to our age, someone who it's not something we can relate to.
Yeah, because
in a way,
he and Zoe Kazan are pretty much our age. So.
Right. It's not something I can say we relate to, but it definitely shines a light on something that maybe we were unaware of, or maybe it shines a different light on it, and I really enjoyed that. I'm giving it an A-. I really enjoyed The Big Sick. I had a lot of fun with it.
Very cool.
It's definitely funny. It's so funny. When they say it's an awkward story, it's fucking awkward.
Wow. Okay.
There are some awkward scenes, and I akin it to.
Well, this is an indie, so it's got to be a little twisted.
Right. And well, like I always say, like you love your dark indie films. You love your indie films that are so steeped in emotion that there's almost
I
no
like this
levity.
kind of stuff too,
right,
though.
you do. But for me, these are the type of indie films I like. They're a little quirky. They're a little bit from left field.
They don't make them that much, though. That's the
No.
problem. And it takes, like you said, right off the bat, is it needs a really good script,
It does.
and it needs to have really good writing and dialogue, and actors to punch up that dialogue and make it deliver.
Right. So yeah, Big Sick for me, A-.
Cool.
All right, Jay, let's get into Dunkirk.
Well, first of all, yeah. Speaking of that, these accents were fucking heavy.
In Dunkirk?
There was many scenes where I did not know what the hell they were saying, and I think it's authentic. Those old school accents, or just language is. Their dialect is very heavy, and especially in certain parts, it's hard for people to understand. And especially in the movie world. But, writer-director, Christopher Nolan, man, he is back. And this is a very unique kind of take, and it's a very powerful World War II film.
New York.
And I saw this in the 70mm format. I do wish I saw it in IMAX. I was being a little cheap, and I did not see it in IMAX, but I really wish I did. From the opening, you're just fucking locked in. And it's a short movie. It's 106 minutes. It's the shortest Nolan movie, I believe. And it is a ensemble piece with minimal dialogue, but it really showcases, all these different types of soldiers on land, water, and in the air, in different time.
Wait, you mean they shall fight on the beaches? They shall fight on the land and sea. They shall fight in the air.
Yes. Different time loops, or
you know what I found really interesting? All of the dialogue from the trailer was the only dialogue in this film.
But when you think about it, dude, in this kind of war, in this day and age, these are kids, and I think they did a good job of showing that. And like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna come up to somebody. You're not gonna like shoot the shit. Like, Yeah, so
Dude,
a little cloudy day today, huh?
I am in no way knocking this film. I've heard people bitching that
so
there's
authentic.
there's no character development. There doesn't need to be character development. This is not a film that's about character.
Exactly. After seeing the movie, I was a little worried about that because I heard about that. And as soon as I saw the movie, that didn't bother me whatsoever. It's not that kind of movie.
This is a film that is about event. It's about the event that is going on, and it follows 3 different stories. It follows the story of a young soldier surviving on the beach or trying to survive on the beach. It follows 2 airmen, and then it follows a civilian captain of a schooner, of just a sailboat, who sails across the English Channel to Dunkirk. And that's it. I mean, we get some other stories peppered in there, very minor ones peppered in there, but there's not a whole lot of dialogue. There's not a whole lot of character development. It is the event from the beginning until the event is over, and that is it. That is it. There's not a whole. There doesn't need to be more than that, because this film was only meant to highlight this event and to show spectacle, and it did both of those things.
Well, the acting was pretty solid. Overall, I mean, for the most part, it was pretty solid.
That, and Tom Hardy's face,
because a lot of these were unknowns. All those kids, for example, were pretty much unknowns.
Tom Hardy's face is seen in the first 5 minutes of the film, and then the last 2 minutes of the film.
Right.
And the whole rest of the time, it's covered by a mask. And I'm not sure whether Nolan just has a fetish.
Do you want me to take the mask off, Nolan?
No, leave it on.
As you wish.
Oh my god!
The fire rises in my pants. You gave me herpes.
Oh my god! You kill me every time.
But I mean, that was my favorite character, and I say that with quotation marks that you can't see in this audio medium. That was my favorite. Those were my favorite scenes. Those were all my favorite shots. Those things.
It was pretty cool.
Of Tom.
I was a little worried because the trailer didn't do it for me. The aerial shots, but in the movie it worked.
Oh, dude, yeah, the aerial shots sold me. Those were my favorite parts, and it was the only part of the film that filled me with a lot of emotion. When he was flying over the beach, dead stick, back and forth.
So good.
That part was great, and I don't think that's too much of a spoiler because they definitely that is the tension that this film builds, and we haven't even gotten into score. How score builds fucking tension. Hans Zimmer's score is absolutely the highlight and star of this fucking film.
The fucking man,
dude. There is like this humming that is like going on at like scenes, and then like the music just like ramps up, and then it goes back down, and it goes back down to this hum, and like this hum is just like it's just throughout the entire.
You're on edge
film.
the whole time, and you're locked in. You're completely engrossed.
It's amazing that we talked about last week we talked about Bone Tomahawk, a film that was punctuated by the fact that it had no score, that its dialogue wasn't
exactly
scored. And we talk about this a film that wouldn't exist without its score. It wouldn't even be on your fucking radar. You wouldn't even give a shit about it if you saw this film without its score, because it wouldn't have worked without it. Hans Zimmer's score was so
he nailed it, and
absolutely vital to it.
And honestly, he didn't fall back on his old usual notes and shticks and stuff like that loud, like boom, like the whole like.
No, but there was definitely that.
Well, sure, but that was effective,
right? It was, because it's like
this is an immersion movie, right. So you're immersed in this movie, and it only accentuated that. It helped.
Right. For me, it was like a swarm of bees, and they're very muted. But then when they get ramped up, they just it just gets louder, and it punctuates every scene so perfectly. Much in the way like Baby Driver developed a soundtrack that fit directly into how the film operated. This score fit directly with how the film operated, more so than it does for a lot of other films. It wasn't just there to add a score. It was there to really build the film, and that was one of my favorite things about Dunkirk. That and the aerial shots, and I mean everything that happened on that guy's boat, I actually found to be the least interesting. The boat from England to Dunkirk.
Mark Rylance was a little too stoic, a little too dry, very one note. He it was a little weird, and there was an incident on the bus. I mean, on the boat, on the boat, and it just didn't handle it the way I thought they should have handled it, and it was a little.
See, I actually think they handled it in. I enjoyed the way they handled it because it was different, right?
It was different.
It
wasn't disrespectful.
It didn't cause tension the way you thought it would. Is what you were talking about.
I think so. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Because that would have gotten into character development, Jay. And this was not a story about character.
I guess you're right.
So
you're right. This is about duty and about the big picture.
And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about it. I liked the fact of the whole reason this event happened was because England wasn't preparing for the battle that they're abandoning. You know, they were giving up on France. France had been taken. They were preparing for the battle that's to come, and that's the battle for Britain. That's the battle for the homeland. So they couldn't sacrifice one goddamn thing to go out there and help. I enjoyed it a lot, and I found myself. So I remember the beginning, watching it in the beginning. I wasn't crazy about what I was watching. And that's because, like I said, that swarm of bees, it has to build. It has to get bigger.
The storytelling structure is very different. It kind of jumps back and forth, and it's not that hard. I think a lot of people are going to easily adjust to it, but it is not very conventional. And, you know, it takes a little bit of time. And I think for some people, it might take a little bit of time to get invested with these characters and with the scope of the picture and what everybody is trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do, and understand the urgency of what they're in and how dire of a situation they are in, and how it's just a horrible situation.
A lot of tension in that hull of the beached ship. A lot of tension going on in that. And you know, the guy who played Alex, a virtually unknown. He was virtually not even virtually unknown. This is his first feature film. And then of course he was also companioned by Harry Styles of One Direction, who
a solid job,
who did a really good job. And
he actually had a lot more screen time and a lot more acting almost range almost
than anyone else did.
Than anybody else did, which was surprising.
Even Nolan said in interviews, you know, you might see this kid as the kid who sings in a boy band. He goes, I saw this kid as the actor that showed up to set before anybody else, and I saw this kid as the last actor to leave my set. And he's the only one who was asking me for direction. No, to be fair, you know, other than
probably didn't know any better, but
other than the kid who played Alex,
right?
The other actors in this are all people who have worked with Nolan before, or who have worked in this type of caliber of film, and Harry Styles obviously hasn't.
Right.
Tom Hardy's obviously worked with Nolan now,
and
twice.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy's worked with him multiple times, 3-4 times. So, you know, they're used to taking direction from him. And you talk about how today CGI, everything can be CGI. We'll fix it in post. We don't even know what the fuck that means. We'll fix it in post. This film, other than
there's no fixing in post,
right? Other than you told me it was the one scene has CGI.
I feel like from watching the movie, the only thing that I'm pretty certain that had CGI was the fire on the water, because there was oil in the water.
Real life soldiers, you can't put real life people in the water and then light it on fire.
Exactly.
So that's the only part that's probably CGI.
I think because there were real ships getting literally
I don't doubt
blown up and sinking, and you could tell they're real ships sinking.
Yep.
And
he bought hundreds of real ships. Real fishing boats, real sailboats, all authentic to the era. He also bought several real battleships and real military ships and had them repurposed to look like they should back in that day, and then fucking sunk them. And that's not surprising, because this is a guy who bought a hospital for The Dark Knight, an abandoned hospital, fixed it up, and then blew it the fuck up, all for one scene. Everything he did in this film
that worked beautifully, though.
Had to be done in one take.
Yeah.
All the people in that ship that turns sideways, and we get that one moment of Inception where everything goes sideways, and like the camera doesn't move, but the ship goes sideways, and it gets very trippy for you for a few minutes, and the water fills up. Those are real people really getting engulfed by water in a real ship that is really fucking sinking.
I didn't read too much about I think they kind of kept it out of the press as far as like how long and how extensive and how hard, and you could tell how hard this shoot was, this was probably brutal.
Weeks.
And certain sequences and scenes were probably, like you said, weeks and prep to take.
There was talks about Warner Brothers asking him to film at this location, Nope. He's going to film on the exact beach where the exact event actually took place. These ships that we're sinking are going to sink in the English fucking Channel. We're going to do it where it happened.
I think I read something that his grandfather fought in this war, and so this story was very near and dear to his heart and very personal. So he really wanted to do it the way he thought was respectful and fitting.
Dunkirk became this thing, and it's something that the British even use today, from what I understand, from what I heard in an interview, is that, I believe they call it Dunkirk Heart. It's about the homeland offering the aid when needed. So Dunkirk is something it's kind of hailed in this way, and it's just like, how the general public, how the civilians can lend to the war effort. In the same way that like Rosie the Riveter was like, America, where it's just like, yeah, we can band together, we can do this. Buy your bonds. Every bond is a bullet in the barrel of your best guy's gun.
But yeah, this was actually shot 75% on IMAX cameras even.
Right.
And that's impressive as well. I mean, I think probably mostly anything outside was
70
IMAX.
And 70 millimeter film.
Right, exactly.
Fucking crazy.
And he did it seamlessly, and he really did a good job.
Crazy spectacle. Crazy spectacle. But for me, as far as it goes for film-wise, when I get over spectacle, when I get over score, when I get over everything else, those things are only parts of a story. The rest of the story wasn't really there. For me, I do need a little bit of character. I'm just that guy. I do need a little bit of character. I understand that this film exists without that aspect of film going. I understand this film pretty much exists without script. It could have very easily have been a war documentary.
Well, I mean, see, I usually judge a lot of movies by what they are trying to do. They're not trying to make a certain kind of movie. They're trying to do this kind of movie, and they, I think, achieved exactly what they wanted to achieve. Yep. And I grade upon that, and as far as my feelings upon that, and so it worked for me. I mean, it worked for a lot of people. It didn't work for some people, from what I've heard. But overall, it's positive, I think. And I don't think anybody can really knock that. Usually, like what you're just saying right now, is the character development was a little weak.
I'm not using that to knock my score down at all. It's not gonna really affect my score at all, because I understand that's not what this film was about. It's just I have to put that out there for those people that are like me, that are character driven, where your character is everything for most films. It's just not that way for this film. If you're wavering on the side of, do I wait for this, do I go see this, you don't wait. This film can only be seen in the theater. That's it.
I completely agree.
I'm never going to watch this film again. I'm
not
going to watch this film at home. I'm not going to, unless I put it on in the home theater and I have, and I'll
even still.
When I do it, I'll wear headphones. I'll wear my Stereosonic headphones that basically sound like I'm in the theater. I will wear them and I will watch it here in the theater. But that's it. I'm never going to watch this film on my TV, even though I have a fairly large TV with fairly high definition, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to watch it there, because this film does not lend to that. It does not lend to the small screen whatsoever.
No. And, I think I said I saw this in 70, and I wish I saw it in IMAX. And I feel like I almost want to see it again in IMAX. And I might. I mean, I really enjoyed this movie, and I give it an A, because this is just, for me, an extremely solid movie, and I thought it was a very impressive movie as far as what he accomplished, and I think it's an important story that completely I didn't know anything about, and it was interesting to know. And it's a sad story. I mean, it's a bad story. I mean, it's not like it was like a happy ending.
There is a happy ending.
I mean, a little bit, but it's still. I mean, there was a lot of fucked up shit that went down. And
there was. I mean, I can't tell you how it's a happy ending, and you can't say why it's a sad ending.
Well, the war continued 5 years after this incident as well. So I mean, it's not necessarily like.
So for those, this is
before, they got off Dunkirk and they went back into war. Probably.
I mean, this is before the United States was even in the war. So.
Yeah, so
this is before. So for me,
it's a very English story.
For me, it's an A-, and it's just that I found the beginning of it to be you were just dropped in, and other than words on the screen. That's it. Like, you were just dropped in. Now, granted, the setting is something we all understand. World War II is a setting we can all understand. We can all get the tone of a World War II film. However, just kind of being dropped in there, I felt like it took me until the second act of the film to really get into what's going on. And some people might say, well, that's a strength of the film that you kind of felt like a fish out of water, much the same way as these guys felt like standing there on that beach.
Right.
But for me, I really felt like I could have been drawn in a little bit more in the beginning.
Okay.
The spectacle wasn't there early on in the film.
That's true.
The spectacle doesn't begin until the second act.
Sure, that's true.
So for me, it's an A-. I
understand that.
A
Absolutely.
fucking fantastic score. I mean, don't get me wrong.
No.
It's a high score.
Absolutely.
For those of you wondering whether you should go to the theaters and see War for the Planet of the Apes or Dunkirk, my vote is for War for the Planet of the Apes.
I agree with that, and I will stand behind that as well.
But if you're going to see this, definitely see it in the IMAX, and definitely don't wait. If you have the time and you have the means, take the day. Go see both. Go see War. Go see this. Go see The Big Sick. I mean, there's so many films out there right now.
There's a lot of good stuff
Me
out
and
there
you
right
talked
now.
about for the past couple months. We knew July was going to be fucking massive. We
didn't know it was going to be this good.
Yeah.
And Atomic Blonde comes out this week, and I'm excited for it. And it's getting mixed buzz, but mostly positive. And I know it's not your kind of thing, but I'm looking forward to seeing. And I'm going to see The Big Sick and Atomic Blonde. Right before I go on vacation. So I'm on vacation.
I'm going to do what I can to see Atomic Blonde, but I do have my daughter this weekend, so I'm not going to go crazy out of my way to see it. If I see it, we'll review it together. If not, we'll find some time for you to give your impressions on it. So I want to thank everybody for listening to our minisode review of Dunkirk and my mini review of The Big Sick. If you enjoy the show, please go on to Twitter, follow us at SuperMoviePod. There you can be part of the polls. You can tell us what you think of films. You can tell us if our reviews are bullshit. You can tell me if I suck at my life. I mean, whatever. You can do whatever you want there. It's the anonymity of the internet. You can get away with pretty much just about anything. You can do a GIF of Jay sodomizing me. There's things that you can do. Also, please go on to iTunes if you listen to us on iTunes and leave us a review on iTunes. You can screenshot that review and you can email it to us. supermoviebrothers.podcast@gmail.com. That's supermoviebrospodcast@gmail.com. That will enter you in to win this month's Loot Crate. And this month, the Loot Crate does include a Rick figure from Rick and Morty. It's an exclusive Loot Crate figure. And word is, it's explicit. So if you want to get yourself a very rare figure of Rick from Rick and Morty, please make sure that you leave us a review, screenshot it, and email it to supermoviebrothers.podcast@gmail.com. Also, we are part of a network that is the Podfix Network. Be sure to check out the website, www.podfixnetwork.com. Be sure to check out some of the other shows that are part of the Podfix Network and to go to the website to find exclusive content. There you can find written reviews from me or Jay, and you can also find written reviews from other members of the Podfix family. You can also find other exclusive content like music videos and any type of content we create, we like to put up there for people to check out. And the only way you can find that is by going to podfixnetwork.com. So I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.